When police first opened the missing person report, they had no idea what they were walking into, because behind this case was a man who planned every detail, every step, every second. No fingerprints, no weapon, no mistakes. But there was one thing he didn't expect, and that's the reason he's behind bars today. This is how Colorado's smartest killer was finally caught. The story begins in Fort Collins, Colorado, a place known more for the mountains, breweries, and quiet suburban life than violent crime. Most people who grew up here would tell you the same thing. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't dangerous. It wasn't the kind of place where you locked your back door during the day. People waved at strangers. Kids rode bikes until dark. And for the most part, police dealt with things like noise complaints, lost pets, and the occasional DUI. Not homicide. That's why when Rhoda Fischer, a 32-year-old paralegal and part-time college student, disappeared, the initial reaction wasn't panic. It was confusion. Rhoda wasn't the type to vanish. She had responsibilities, a schedule, routines she never broke. She kept lists for everything: groceries, deadlines, workout times, even reminders to hydrate. People who knew her described her with one word: consistent. She wasn't impulsive. She wasn't reckless. And she wasn't running away from anything. So when she stopped answering messages, missed a shift, and didn't show up for her evening class, something was wrong. The first person to notice was her coworker, then her sister. Both tried calling, texting, checking social media. Nothing. No reply. No activity. Her phone remained on, but silent. The last confirmed message she ever sent was at 7:43 p.m. the night before. A simple one: on my way home. It should have been a normal text, something nobody thinks twice about, but later it would become the timestamp investigators obsessed over. When officers first visited Rhoda's apartment, nothing looked out of place. Her car was gone, but everything else, her purse, house keys, laptop, were inside exactly where they should have been. The lights were off, doors locked, windows secured. There was no sign of struggle, no forced entry, no overturned furniture, nothing broken, missing, or unusual. If you didn't know she was gone, you would have assumed she had just stepped out for a quick errand. Detectives later said something strange stood out. The apartment was clean, too clean. Not hotel clean, not I vacuumed yesterday clean, a kind of clinical, unnatural clean. Surfaces wiped down with precision. No dust on the counters, no stray hair on the sink, no fingerprints on doorknobs. Every item looked perfectly placed, like someone reset the room to a default setting. But the strangest part? Rhoda wasn't like that. Her sister confirmed it, laughing through tears when detectives showed her photos of the inside. No, that's not her. She's clean, but not like that. So the crime scene wasn't the apartment. The apartment was a message. Police began reviewing Rhoda's digital life. Messages, cloud backups, email, work files. That's when a name started appearing repeatedly. Marcus Hale. At first, he seemed uninteresting. Mid-30s, graduate student at Colorado State University, studying behavioral psychology and applied computer sciences. No criminal record. No history of violence. Quiet. Private. Intelligent. His academic advisors describe him as someone with obsessive focus and an unusually analytical mind that sometimes bordered on unnerving. But the real red flag wasn't his personality. It was his proximity. Marcus lived less than 10 minutes from Rhoda. Detectives assumed he was just someone she knew professionally, maybe a classmate, maybe a casual connection. But the tone of the messages said otherwise. They were personal, specific, purposeful. Rhoda wasn't dating him. She was interviewing him. She had been working on a paper for one of her classes titled The Psychology of Manipulation and the Dark Triad in Modern Society. Marcus was one of her research subjects. Her professor described him as the most intellectually dangerous person I've ever sat across from. Not because he was violent, but because of how logically he spoke about morality, as if ethics, emotion, and empathy were theoretical inconveniences rather than human realities. During one recorded interview, a clip investigators later replayed repeatedly, Marcus said something chilling. Most crimes fail not because of morality, but because of ego. The moment someone believes they're too smart to get caught, that's when they make their first mistake. Rhoda laughed in the background of the audio. Marcus didn't. Police attempted to contact him, and he answered the door like nothing was wrong. Calm, friendly, cooperative. He said he hadn't seen Rhoda in days. Claimed she had canceled their last meeting. Offered detectives tea. Even asked if there was anything he could do to help. At first, the officers left thinking he might genuinely have no involvement, but something gnawed at the lead detective. A detail small enough to miss yet too strange to ignore. Marcus never asked what happened to Rhoda. Not once. Not is she okay? Not what do you mean missing? Not when did she disappear? He just accepted the information, like he already knew. Investigators didn't have probable cause to detain him, but they left with a court order to monitor his digital activity and search his financial records. That's when everything shifted. Marcus wasn't just intelligent. He wasn't just calm. He was meticulous. No credit card trail. No purchases related to a crime. No sudden spending. No late-night travel. But there was something, an anomaly buried deep inside deletion logs recovered from a cloud backup, a folder labeled Echelon Theory. Inside were notes, hundreds of them, structured like a manual, not fiction, not brainstorming, a blueprint, a step-by-step strategy describing how to abduct, eliminate, and erase a person while minimizing forensic trace, digital footprint, and statistical behavior deviation. Every scenario was accounted for. Unexpected witnesses, traffic cameras, biometric tracking, police interrogation psychology, DNA contamination control, burner communication redundancy, timeline reformatting. It read like someone preparing for a perfect crime, or testing one. Detectives now had probable cause, but Marcus wasn't at home. His car was gone. Police immediately tracked cell tower pings. His device wasn't off, but it wasn't behaving normally. The phone was bouncing between towers in a pattern investigators recognized instantly. Someone was using technology to spoof location. Marcus wasn't running randomly. He was executing a plan. Roadblocks went up. Helicopters deployed. A statewide bulletin was issued. And in the middle of all of it, a park ranger made the call that changed everything. A tan Subaru matching Marcus's vehicle was seen entering a remote wilderness access road hours earlier, but never coming back out. Police moved fast. Night vision drones scanned the area. K-9 teams swept the woods. Officers hiked terrain most people avoid without proper gear. And then, kilometers into the tree line, they found it. Rhoda's car. Hidden. Covered with camouflage netting. Branches placed deliberately over the roof. Not tossed, arranged. Inside the trunk was Rhoda. She didn't make it. And next to her, almost like a signature, was a note. Control the variables. Control the outcome. The manhunt escalated into a tactical operation. Hours later, they found Marcus sitting on a rock near a frozen river. Calm, still, staring at the water like it was a mirror. He didn't resist. He didn't run. He didn't speak until the handcuffs clicked. Then he smiled and asked, "What gave me away?" Detectives later answered him in interrogation, projecting a single photo across the table. Not Rhoda, not the forest, not the crime scene. It was a screenshot of his deletion logs, the Echelon Theory file. The flaw he never expected was digital. A backup auto-sync without his knowledge after his phone briefly connected to Wi-Fi outside a cafe. The smartest killer in Colorado wasn't caught because he made a violent mistake. He was caught because he overlooked one thing. No matter how perfect the plan, technology always remembers. In court, Marcus represented himself. He dissected evidence line by line, questioned witnesses with surgical precision, challenged procedure, logic, motive, and methodology. He argued that his research wasn't a confession. It was academic theory. But the evidence was overwhelming. The car, the note, the digital files, his proximity, his lack of alibi, his psychological profile. The verdict wasn't quick, but it was unanimous. Guilty. Marcus showed no emotion. Not anger, not fear, not regret, just calculation, as if solving an equation in his head. Before sentencing, he requested to make a final statement. Everyone expected denial, excuses. explanations. Instead, he said, most killers are caught because they underestimate law enforcement. I wasn't caught because of intelligence. I was caught because I tested a hypothesis, not because I tried to hide it. If I wanted perfection, you wouldn't be here. He paused, then spoke his final sentence. This was never about murder. It was about proof. Marcus Hale was sentenced to life without parole. And to this day, investigators still debate one chilling question. If this was just a test, was Rhoda the first? Or just the first one he allowed him to find?